Let's see here. Let me try something here. All right, we're live right here on YouTube, and I'm here with Gregg Roman of Middle East Forum. Gregg, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I am so excited to have you on because as we turn on the TV today, we see things are in quite a chaos between Russia and Ukraine. Tell us a little bit about this.
So right now, we have passed the 50th day of conflict between Ukraine and the aggressive actions of Russia acting as the invader of Ukraine, a sovereign democracy in Eastern Europe. And as a result of that, for the first 6 weeks of the war, there was a three-pronged push. The Russian front opened in the south of the country with an attempt to connect Crimea and Russia proper. Crimea is the area of Ukraine which Russia annexed back in 2014. So they built a land bridge from the country of Russia to the isthmus known as Crimea. The second front was in an area called the Donbass, which is in the east of Ukraine. That is the two so-called autonomous self-declared republics of Ukraine's Russian-speaking population. And then the third front, which really didn't work out for the Russians as much as they had planned, was their invading force from North Ukraine, from Belarus, which attempted to quickly take the capital, Kiev, and Kharkiv, two pretty populous city centers, one being the capital, the second being the second most populous city in Ukraine. And the Russians were stopped in their tracks. They withdrew from Kiev. They have realigned their forces to a 300-mile front in the east of the country. And as of today, the Russians are beginning phase two, or what I would later categorize as attempt number two, to strike at Ukraine in a successful manner. In the meantime, Russia has lost tens of thousands of soldiers, thousands of tanks, tens of thousands of pieces of equipment. Their flagship of their Black Sea fleet, Moscow, was sunk by two surface-to-surface Ukrainian Neptune missiles. They've lost dozens of aircraft, over 100 helicopters. Things are not going well for Russia.
So there's a lot of companies that have pulled out of Ukraine, such as McDonald's and I think MasterCard and so many. Why are they pulling their businesses out?
Out of Russia?
Yeah.
Well, for three reasons. The first, I think, is that their consumers demand moral accountability on behalf of these companies that would otherwise allow Russians and the Russian government to profit from their continued operation in their country. They pay taxes to the Russian government. They provide economic opportunity for Russian citizens. Their customers are saying, hey, are you guys going to support Russia, its government, and its people at a time when they are mercilessly slaughtering Ukrainians? Second reason is because of consumer demand. It's bad for business if they stay in the country. They want to try to do this in step with other governments where these companies are located. So if the United States declares that Russia's no longer being given favored nation status in terms of trade relations, they're looking to boycott, divest, and sanction American assets from Russia in terms of the government. Corporations are the next likely place to act. And thirdly, I think it's because these companies realize that eventually, if they keep on doing business in Russia, they may find themselves on the wrong side of government sanctions, whether it's from the EU, individual European countries, Canada, the United States, and also a larger umbrella now with South Korea, Japan, Thailand, Australia. India even has canceled a major weapons deal it had with a Russian company to purchase attack helicopters. Russia is being isolated both by global government and by global business. And these two things together hopefully will convince them to stop striking Ukraine, or at least pay a significant enough a price that maybe their citizens will turn on Putin and demand an end to the war.
So many of the Ukrainians have fled to Poland, to escape the war and everything. But I have a question for you. A lot of people are wondering that if the Ukrainian people do decide to come to the United States, do we think that Putin will try to attack us next?
No.
So
I don't think that the United States absorbing Ukrainian refugees from Ukraine will lead to Putin attempting to attack our country. I think if the U.S. were to militarily intervene on behalf of Ukraine, in Ukraine, that might lead to Russian forces attempting an attack on the U.S. military. But there is no way that I would see the absorption of Ukrainian refugees into this country, or any other country for that matter, be a casus belli or rationale to go to war against the U.S.
So what do you see is to come for Russia in Ukraine?
I think Russia right now is playing a two-tone fiddle. On one hand, they're dancing to their propaganda. They're claiming victory. They're claiming everything's fine on the home front. But there's some telltale signs, say 4 or 5 indicators, which show that Russia is teetering on the brink. The first is casualties. The Russian army is unable to resupply, re-equip, and provide logistics for Russian soldiers to be able to make war against Ukraine. They're running out of bullets, they're running out of missiles, they're running out of equipment. They're running out of soldiers. They have made a promise in their propaganda to not send conscripts, to not send Russians who are drafted into the Russian military to fight in Ukraine. They're now offering unemployed workers, Syrian mercenaries, and Libyan Islamists the opportunity to fight in Ukraine because they can't find enough troops to be able to fill their ranks. Second thing is the Russians are on the brink of losing hundreds of thousands of jobs from all of the corporations that we spoke about earlier, leaving Russia. If the companies leave, there's no one to employ the people who are working for them. And more than that, the mayor of Moscow today said that over 200,000 Russians are likely to lose their jobs because of this war. And even beyond that, the governor of the Russian Central Bank said he barely has enough money to pay back Russia's foreign debt, let alone salaries of Russian government workers. The other thing that's happening is you are seeing Russians who disagree with the government leave Russia, and they are starting to speak out openly in other countries about what Putin has done to them. The sign that I think will really be the straw that broke the bear's back is when Russian oligarchs, those people who have made their riches off of Putin being in power for the last 22 years, start speaking publicly against him. When that tide shifts, you'll know Russia might be at the place where it'll stop waging war against Ukraine.
And do you think it will come down to a point where Vladimir Putin will have to step down?
I don't know. I don't think that if we look at the past 100 years of Russian history, Soviet history, usually when leaders are removed from power, think of Nikita Khrushchev, think of Trotsky, think of Brezhnev, Gorbachev, Yeltsin. Any attempt to remove a head of state is usually done in a way that's carefully scripted and to the loss of the person who's in power. I think Putin shows himself the door rather than wait for one of his heir apparents to take over, because we really don't know who will replace Putin. At the beginning, we thought it was Sergei Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, but because of all the mistakes that Russia's defense and national security establishment have made, he's probably not the guy waiting in line. The same can be said for Russia's intelligence services. they really, really messed up on predicting what would happen to the Russian military when it invaded Ukraine on February 24th. So I think the person who started this war, Putin, would rather stay in power and end the war rather than continue the fighting and risk his place as president of Russia.
And that's the main thing here. As we watch the news and we see the interviews that are being completed, Zelensky acts like he's the better force that's trying to work with Russia, and Russia's not wanting to be worked with.
Well, that's I think the telltale sign here. Zelensky would like nothing better than for the fighting to stop. His country has lost tens of billions of dollars in economic output. He's lost tens of thousands of his citizens. His country is basically being turned into a parking lot by the Russian military, but he still continues to fight on. And on the other hand, besides Russia's military and economic losses, its own country proper hasn't really been hit that hard. But they are paying a significant price because of his defiance of Russia's might. So Zelensky wins if he survives. Putin, I think the possibility of a win for him is over. It's just how he can take a loss and call it a draw. That is his only viable option of moving forward. So we'll see what happens.
So tell us a little bit about Middle East Forum, how it came about, and what y'all's mission is really to do.
Sure. We are an organization, a think tank that was founded 27 years ago in Philadelphia, PA, with the mission of protecting American interests in the Middle East and protecting Western values from Middle Eastern threats. Sometimes we go beyond the Middle East and talk about Russia or Europe or the contrast between Western values and non-Western values. But if you want to find out more about us, you can follow us on Twitter at MEForum or on our website, meforum.org.
Well, thank you so much, Gregg, for coming on. I have enjoyed talking with you about Ukraine and Russia, and we welcome you on again anytime.
Thank you for having me. Hope you have a very nice night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.